A very good day to all of you listeners out there, and welcome to another episode of this podcast, Simon Says. Now, today we have Lyra here, our producer.
Hi, everyone.
And we just want to talk about General Election 15 because we are just days away from this very interesting election. Now, to start off, we're going to play a video for you all.
This year and why?
I'm voting every year. This is my duty. This is the chance that I can get to exercise my responsibility as a citizen of Malaysia.
That's
Good,
right,
yes,
Uncle.
but this is my duty. So I have to do it again. It is important because otherwise who else can ensure you have a good future and the future of the kids, my kids.
I want to see a change of government, a change of rules, and see that the rakyat is given what is fair.
Actually, I was planning not to vote, but then I was encouraged by my sister and also my dad.
No, I'm not going to be voting this year as if I'm not really sure what's going on with the political scene. If I'm not sure who I'm voting for, I would rather not, I would say, corrupt the votes,
Unfortunately, I will not be voting this year. Simply because I think the political climate is quite messy at this point in time. And the Prime Minister candidate is not someone that I would want to vote for.
Usually, I will go back to Kedah to vote, but since the leader now simply jumped the party, it makes me feel like, why do I have to spend thousands to go back with families? Ended up, they made their own decision to jump the party. Dah rasa macam they don't appreciate us as a rakyat kan.
I believe that obviously one person can't make all the difference, but if one person, there's more people that stack up, then that is where the difference comes in. That starts with me. So.
Now, that's very interesting feedback, right, from the floor. And now, Lyra, there are many responses out there, and we're going to talk about them one by one. But what is the striking thing for you?
I think it's really the disparity between two different generations that we're seeing here. The older generations have that sense of duty to vote.
Yep.
Even if they felt pessimistic about the whole outlook, they will still want to vote. I think it's really interesting that they want to vote, especially for the next generation. But it's the next generation that you get that sort of feeling that maybe it's like the one guy just say, if I don't know what I'm voting for, I'd rather not vote, corrupt the votes. I felt it's a little bit self-righteousness that I sense over there.
Yeah, and those feedbacks are from people who have voted before, right? So they say, this time, I'm not going to vote. Now, incidentally, I just spoke to one person in my office, and she was saying, this time I'm not going to vote. So I said, why? And she said, well, because we were cheated in 2018. I said, how? And she was like, oh, we didn't get what was promised. But, we've been talking about GE15 for a long time already, 22 months to undo 60 years of systemic corruptions and messes. It's just impossible. Now, we're going to talk about what GE14 has actually achieved a bit later, but let's talk about some other reactions. Now, I want to go toward the last lady, right? And it's very interesting because she represents a kind of category that is a bit unsure, but with the right engagement and encouragement, they will come up.
Yep. And she says changes starts with me.
And she's a bit hesitant, but then she's like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I feel like this might be the kingmaker this time. That people who are a bit unsure and all of a sudden, because of friends' encouragement, and another guy also, right, my sister and my dad kind of pushed me. So that's very interesting because even with 1 week to go, do you feel like there is still that push that can be done to encourage people to go out?
Yep. I think especially with 6.8 million new voters.
Yep.
There's so many uncertainty, but that makes it really, really exciting this time around. You won't get to see another 6.8 million voters, new voters.
Yeah, this is a once-a-lifetime opportunity for both sides. And so it's a tremendous, it's like, we're entering into a cave with potentially unlimitless treasure, but at the same time, you have traps, you have pitfalls and things like that. So I can see all the major political players are excited, but a bit careful, a bit wary because you never know. Because in the last election, state election in Johor 7-8 months ago, the turnout rate was so low. I'm talking about Undi 18, first time voter. Of course, it's COVID and things like that. All of a sudden, Singapore borders are open. All of a sudden, people can fly back to East Malaysia. All the statistics in all the state elections, do you agree is a bit irrelevant?
Yeah, I mean, it felt very, very different. As in, what happened in the state elections may not necessarily be the real sentiment that we're really seeing in this upcoming GE15.
Yeah, and I was talking to my father-in-law just now over dinner, and he made one observation, and he said, in state election, people might go for infrastructure issue, local issue, is anyone cleaning my drain, those kind of issue. But in federal elections, and he was saying, in his observation, in terms of East Malaysia, people, especially the urban voters, might consider who forms the federal government, who becomes prime minister. Maybe those issues will become more important. Do you agree with his outlook?
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, it's entirely different ball game altogether. I mean, state versus federal election. But I mean, and also like you were saying about your father-in-law mentioning about the prime minister who's going to be the prime minister, the next prime minister for Malaysia. So I think people will need to be reminded of the fact that we are voting for the Trinity.
Yeah. And Lara, maybe just quickly explain the Trinity. I think we kind of mentioned that in some episode. I think the teal episode, right, the Australian teal. But the Trinity, do you remember what we were saying, right? I mean, of course, we are voting for the party, the candidate,
and the coalition.
And the coalition. So it's all in one. Very difficult to separate out. Now, before we talk about the youth voters, because that's one of the most important aspects, let's talk about GE14, because some people felt like we achieved nothing. But what say you? If people say, we didn't achieve anything.
No, I think we achieved almost the impossible feat. I mean, the fact that we were able to change a government.
And outrightly, Pakatan Harapan kind of formed government without any assistance. And even in their wildest estimations, in fact, when they look at all the prediction, I think only Rafizi predicted the right result. Everyone else was like, okay, we will be the biggest winner, but we will need Warisan, we will need GPS, we will need certain cooperation, maybe pass to form government. But in the end, they did not need. So impossible. But what else do you think we achieved?
We see more independence to the judiciary. And there are also talks on like the restoration of MA63 agreement, the broken covenant.
So do you think there is any advancement in that area?
Yeah, I mean, even recently we saw, over the last 2 years, we have been seeing that the restoration of the status of Sabah and Sarawak.
So they really are not so much under the thumb of federal, because all of a sudden, like especially Barisan National Coalition, they are now needing Sabah Sarawak to even survive. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a fun thing to do. I'm not a supporter of neither of them, but it's a whole change of dynamic in power sharing and bargaining power, right?
Yep.
Now, what about what other things? I mean, of course, judiciary, one of the biggest things that happened not too long ago, not just the convictions of ex-Prime Minister Najib, but the fact that he actually was sent to prison. I think a lot of people still couldn't really believe that. And I think I said a few episodes ago, I really felt that totally changed the mood for this election. And all of a sudden, UMNO doesn't look so strong anymore. I mean, they already look a bit weak since the last general election, but it's a big blow to them, don't you agree?
Yep. And I think that itself deserves a celebration and deserves our vote as well.
So I think that's something that people need to understand. We have taken down strongman politics. So no longer we have such a dominant party that will say, I will be prime minister, I will take all the dishes here and you eat the crumbs. That is no more.
Yep.
And now, I mean, I said a few times already, I hope not a single party get more than 46, because we come into a time where people will have to work together and kind of compromise. And I really, really hope that GPS will not be kingmaker anymore, because they they sort of screw up and cause Pakatan to fall and things like that. But I don't blame them from a political point of view. That's the right thing to do for them. But it's not what we want and things like that. So any other things that you have seen from GE14? And I mean, of course, we have changed our government twice, changed our prime minister twice. So maybe I think it's interesting today, right? There's a news, right?
Yep.
I think it's from the Merdeka survey.
Yep, it is.
Yeah, maybe we can just pull out the news, Merdeka survey. So, yeah, is it on? Yeah, it's on. Government rating stands at 31%. So this is going into general election. This is Prime Minister Ismail Sabri's government rating. I mean, I remember when you showed me this a while ago, I say this was too generous.
But don't you think that there is a general sense? I think, and it's what is shown in the survey as well, that they say there are about, 72% of the respondent. I mean, this is a survey that is being conducted among 1,209 voters, age 18 and above. And they felt like the country was headed towards the wrong direction.
That's very serious. I mean, such a high percentage. And yeah, I mean, if you think of it that way, close to 70% doesn't approve what the government is doing in terms of dealing with COVID, bread and butter issue. There's just a general sluggishness. Remember the other day, some of us just went to Putrajaya, right, and for some research stuff, and we just felt like, before pandemic, it was kind of vibrant and people are doing things, but nobody was there anymore. It's like the mood of the government is very heavy and restless and not sure how to react.
Yeah. I mean, talking about the efficiencies of all the government agencies as well in Putrajaya.
Yep.
But it's interesting just now you mentioned about bread and butter. I mean, I can't help but think about the conversation that I had with my colleague earlier on today. And they were just jokingly saying that, recently when I read news, all that I could see is the exchange rate. The exchange rate between Malaysian ringgit and US dollar.
Yep.
You see, I'm not sure if that's a trick by the media that's causing me to feel a bit of indignation towards what is happening to the state of economy in our nation.
Yeah, I mean, of course, to be fair, I mean, a lot of currency are faring very badly against USD. I mean, just the last 6 months, it's really from 4.2 to 4.7, 4.8.
Yep.
So in fact, I have some clients I used to kind of invoice them in USD because we convert, it's 4. And they're like, can you adjust to 4.6, 4.7 because it's killing us? So, okay, fine. So that's the thing. I think nobody is under any illusion that we are doing well.
Yep.
And so I mean, we still have to come to vote, right? And that's why we talk about 6.8 million youth voter plus first-time voter. Now, Lyra, you want to show us one article, right?
Yep, indeed. And this article is from the Straits Times, Singapore media. And this is talking about...
Okay, it's on, yeah.
Yeah, this is talking about how the politicians now, they are going to have to woo the Malaysian young voters. And it's interesting because they were comparing the urban voters. I mean, what would actually motivate the urban youth voters?
Yep.
So I think one of the things that was being mentioned here is that the national leadership is one of the main issue. It's not so much on like the payouts, handouts, those sort of things, but it's really who's going to be the next leader.
So do you feel like the young urban voter, they are maybe they have a better sense of, I prefer this type of policy. Maybe they are a bit more ideological driven. Yeah,
indeed. I mean, just going back to that TikTok video earlier that we saw.
Yep.
Where, I mean, these are mostly, I think, it's the representation of the urban youth, where they say, if I'm not too sure, I'd rather corrupt the votes. But that also goes to show the other spectrum, whereby if they're very, very sure, I think there are certain things that will really just cause them to be excited or passionate about. So certain things will just drive their passion to vote.
I mean, I think what cannot be disputed is the impact that youth and first-time voters will have. Now, of course, we include together, because if you just count youth in terms of 18 and 19, probably I think it's around 2-3 million.
Yep.
But when you add in the first time voter, which can go all the way to 50, 60 or 70 years old, you never vote in your whole life, and suddenly you are in the electoral role, and their showing up will be massive in terms of whether there is really a shift. So many people I talked to, they just felt like this is the wild card. This is like the Joker kind of situation. It can it can play into many different scenarios. So we know they are beat, and of course the $1 million question: would they come to vote? But going back to the earlier video, and so it seems like there's a couple who say they won't vote because of what they perceive to be. Do you sense like some of them they don't want to vote because maybe they felt like my vote won't make a difference?
Yeah, I think that has been the very common excuse that I've heard over and over again, especially more prevalent among the youth. They say, look, I don't know what would my one vote do to the nation. But really like what the last lady was saying, you are unsure, but I think it's really, really nice and also exciting that because of all this automatic registration, it really sort of like shines the light on this group of people. It's like you have to make a choice. You have to make a determination to move out of lukewarmness and just make a stand for the nation.
Yeah, I remember in the past election cycle, it's like so much energy was spent on driving the voters registration. All the political parties have booths and try to encourage you. And in fact, even one political party in Sarawak was offering money if people get married, right? And I know you're applying for that. Yeah, I think you should get it. Because it's like it's all part of the encouragement for voters' participation. And here I want to go back again to what GE14 achieved, because with GE14 we get only 18.
Yep.
Almost a super majority vote. Even Malaysian National, they all say they were for it. GPS, Pakatan. And we get, what else we get? We get, we managed to have the anti-hoping law.
Yep, indeed.
And it's not perfect, but some of the things, okay, now people always criticize that law by saying it won't prevent another Sheraton. Yeah, it may not, but it may prevent something similar to Sheraton. It can prevent something like Means Court Affair, for example, because that time quite a few independent also kind of gang up together to join the Chinese PBB collision to kind of sideline the IBAN. That's another topic altogether. There will be certain scenario that can be covered. Now I want to talk a little bit now in terms of one of the feeling that I get when voters, especially young voters, they are like, doesn't make a difference. It's because I think there's a bit of disconnect in terms of engagement. It's like they are not being, I guess maybe they are not in the loop, maybe they don't read news, and the political reality of the land doesn't really sink in, okay? So it's like, once every 5 years I'll vote, or twice every 5 years if the state and federal elections in your area are not the same. So to kind of come to a conclusion for today's show, I want to talk about cultivating engagement, So what do you think are some of the things? We have 6.8 million, if you're a marketing guru, this is like the biggest market ever. But how do we do that? How do we encourage people? We're not asking you who to vote. We're just saying you should vote.
Yeah. I think one of the main contention issues that we've been seeing over and over, it's not just in Malaysia as well. It's the whole worldwide issue, is the education. And how do we begin to even teach the next generation, and even those generations who have not voted before, how do you vote for a government that you desire to see? And that is the part where that sort of sense of responsibility has to be instilled. Because I think like younger generation, even my generation and the next generations, we are too pampered, I think. Well, seriously, we are too pampered by our parents. Yes, of course, we are grateful for all the hardship that they have gone through just to give us a better life. But that also sort of like causes to be entitled to certain things. I don't like this, hence I don't want to participate. I mean, I kind of just like shift away from the whole scenario altogether.
So do you feel like the fiery trial of hardship will cause people to just be tougher?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, unfortunately, I think what I observe is a lot of people want change, but at the same time, a lot of people are also very cautious about change and maybe even a little bit fearful of change as well. So it is like what we've seen over the last 2 years. The moment you see a pandemic happening, the uncertainty, I think it's really that fear of uncertainty that causes people to just go berserk.
Now, one of the things about pandemic, and since you mentioned this, is because we're talking about the role of media, we talk about so much, because one of the things I really believe will cause engagement is if the media has more freedom to say the truth. Now, I go back to COVID because during COVID's time, remember there was a narrative that is being pushed, that you must do certain things, you must wear masks, you must have double jab, triple jab, and that kind of thing. And now, all of a sudden, we see news, Pfizer say they never tested the vaccine for transmission issue and things like that. They are admitting it in the different parliaments in over Europe and United States, and insurance are going to sue them. Politicians now come out and say, oh, we don't have the information, you should give amnesty to us because we operate on limited information. It's just total crap. Now, I mention this is because when there is no freedom in the media and all people are hearing are the same recital point, and we're now seeing that with the mainstream media, especially in the West, and especially in light of Brexit and Donald Trump, they just come, sometimes you see 10 channels, they all use the same phrase. It's like someone gave them a note. Now I say this is because when this happens frequent enough, voters get disillusioned.
Yep.
Young voters get disillusioned. So I really feel like the other dimension is we have to fight for freedom, and we have to fight for what people has been describing, citizen engagement media. So it's like like what we're doing, we just do this, and I don't know if we put on YouTube and things like that, we talk about COVID, it's going to be flagged and things like that. But we saw that with some of the populist movements in Italy, in Europe, even in Australia, New Zealand. So I really feel like that come hand in hand in terms of cultivating engagement, because today we are not here so much to talk about election prediction, right? But we're here for the long game. How do we go into that?
Yep. Indeed. So I think it's really time for people to wake up and really just be engaged. I mean, if you like, there's a trend that, if you like vlogging, you do that, but then you do that informed. You don't just listen to one side of the story and not listen to the other side of the story. With the cancellation, cancellation is so prevalent in all the major social media platforms Twitter. Look at what happens with Elon Musk the moment he takes over the whole company.
The jury is still out there, because he came in and saying that he wants to save the social media, but now he seems to be bowing to censorship. But of course, it's not. Time will tell what sort of reform. But it's interesting that people do feel like there needs to be more freedom. And okay, now because our time is up already, but Lyra, I just want to finish off today by just asking you to mention one of the things that you'll be looking out for in these elections.
Oh, are you talking about certain?
Yeah, it could be a certain issue, it could be a certain trend, or even a certain seat that kind of interests you.
Honestly, I think it's not quite the seat. It's more like the candidate that is contesting for the seat. So one of the hottest seat that we're looking at is Sungai Buloh.
KJ.
Yeah, I think
Zulkifli.
Yeah, I think honestly, it's a little bit frustrating when we hear that people are saying that, we think he did a very good job. So hence, although previously I might have a different political party preference, but because of this guy, if I were a Sungai Buloh voter, I will vote for this guy.
I think we should remind people that if you give the seat to any of the coalitions, then they are one step nearer to forming federal government. And people must never forget that.
Yep, because we are practicing the first past the post system in Malaysia. So the moment they pass the post,
Yep.
that party gets that majority.
Yeah, majority out of the 222. Yeah, and for me, it's really, I'm really interested to see what is the trend in East Malaysia, especially Sarawak, because the last Sarawak election was disastrous for the opposition. I don't believe it will remain the same because so many factors, 150,000 voters didn't come back, BN, GPS, coalition is not so confident, and of course, the magical 6.8 million.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm hoping that there will be... Now, of course, the last general election, Sarawak did deliver. The wind of change came from there, so I'm really looking forward to that. So I think that's about it. I know today we're not so much into the seed, the prediction. I mean, all those things you can read, but we're here for the long haul, and I think we're looking forward to coming back immediately after the elections and just talk about it, because I say many times already, it's not the result. Because I remember 2018 and people are like in cloud nine, and it's like, welcome to Malaysia Baru, that kind of thing. And I mean, of course, we felt that kind of happiness, but then very quickly we know we're in La La Land. It's not going to be so quick to undo. But we are moving in the right direction. Do you agree?
Yes, we most definitely are. I mean, contrary to what a lot of people are thinking, we're headed towards the wrong direction. But I think it's really that sort of indignation towards this sort of social issues that would really cause people to be engaged, and engage we must.
Yeah, so to all of you who are listening out there, if you are angry, if you are not satisfied, I say you are in the right place and continue to play your part. So until next time, that's it for now. Bye-bye.